By the time the federal investigator asked me where the crime scene was, the HOA president was already crying into her monogrammed clipboard. We were standing in my backyard with two plainclothes investigators, a county surveyor, a state licensing representative, one very pale surveyor in a reflective vest, and Linda Pruitt. Linda was the HOA president of Oakview Bluffs, suburban warlord, and a woman who had recently told me to just move my house 3 feet. The taller Fed, Special Agent Kellerman from the Department of the Interior's Office of Inspector General, pointed at the patch of disturbed dirt near my back fence. "That where it was?" he asked. I nodded. "Right there," I said. "That's where the brass cap marker sat. They dug it up on Tuesday." He turned to the vest guy and asked if he relocated a federal land survey monument because an HOA president asked him to. The surveyor swallowed hard. "She said it was just a neighborhood pin," he stammered. "She said it was fine." Kellerman raised an eyebrow. "You didn't read the stamp that said U.S. General Land Office before you pried it out of the ground?" Linda sniffed loudly. "You're all being dramatic," she said with an irritated tone. "It's just a stake. We were fixing a setback violation." The county surveyor actually laughed. "Ma'am," he said, "that stake controls the entire subdivision, the bordering watershed, and 2 adjacent sections of public land." Kellerman flipped his notebook shut. "Okay," he said calmly. "I think we're done here. Miss Pruitt, you'll want a lawyer." She stared at me with mascara already leaking down her face. "This is your fault," she hissed. "All because you wouldn't move 3 feet." I sipped my coffee slowly. "Lady," I said, "you tried to move the earth." "My name is Marcus Bell, 38 years old, structural engineer, remote worker, mild introvert. My hobbies include trail running, smoking brisket, and not being harassed by petty tyrants in embroidered polos." Oakview Bluffs looked perfect on paper. Quiet cul-de-sacs, big lots backing up to a protected greenbelt that rolled down to a creek and federal conservation land. Deer sometimes wandered through. The kind of place real estate brochures call exclusive and serene and charmingly deed restricted. The builder's model I bought sat on lot 27 on a gentle slope. The back corner of my property line coincided with a shiny brass survey monument set in concrete at the top of the bluff. I noticed it when I first walked the site, a round disc stamped with coordinates and U.S. General Land Office 1964. I thought it was cool, old nerdy map stuff. The house itself was pretty standard suburban luxury with a 3-car garage, fake Craftsman trim, and more windows than I actually needed. I designed my own deck, kept the exterior within the approved paint palette, and even planted the stupid approved shrub package. I'm not the type to fight an HOA on principle. I just want clearly defined rules and to be left alone. Enter Linda Pruitt. Mid-50s, blonde helmet hair, permanent smirk. She wore a whistle on a lanyard like she was coaching an invisible team. That team was property values, and she was prepared to go to war. She greeted me on move-in day with a gift basket and a printed violation notice. "Welcome to Oakview Bluffs," she chirped. "And also, your contractor's dumpster is 3 inches over the driveway line." I stared at the paper. "I moved in an hour ago," I said. She smiled wider. "We like to be proactive." I should have moved back out. The first few months were mostly minor nonsense. A warning for leaving my trash visible for more than 27 minutes after pickup. A complaint about my porch light being harshly luminous. A friendly reminder that my grill must remain covered when not in use to maintain community aesthetics. Annoying, but manageable. I answered with short, polite emails, fixed what I legally had to, and ignored the rest. Then Linda discovered my plat. Oakview Bluffs backs up to federal conservation land, which means the subdivision lines and some internal lot corners are tied to older federal survey monuments. One of those monuments, the brass cap in my yard, ties into the whole block. I know this because I read my documents, and as a structural engineer I actually understand what those weird lines and numbers mean. Linda, however, saw something else on the plat. My house was the closest to the rear setback line in the entire neighborhood. Not over it, not violating it, just close. She zeroed in like a hawk on a hamster. The notices started arriving. Preliminary notice. Possible encroachment. Our contracted surveyors have raised questions about whether your rear foundation is within the 25-foot rear setback. Please cooperate with our investigation. I wrote back saying the original recorded plat, city-approved plans, and builder survey all show compliance. Please provide your surveyor's stamped drawing. They didn't. Instead, Linda began a campaign. I'd catch her standing at the bluff with a tape measure staring at my house and frowning. My neighbor Sam mentioned she brought it up at the last HOA meeting. Linda says your house might be creeping into common space and we might have to. He trailed off. Have to what? I asked. He winced. Ask you to adjust. I laughed. Adjust what exactly? The Earth's crust. Apparently, yes. A week later, I got the big one. Formal notice of violation. Our surveyors have determined that your residence extends approximately 3.1 feet into the rear setback and partially over the property line into the bluff easement. Remedies may include but are not limited to moving or altering the structure to comply, relocating the deck and foundation edge, or HOA-led remediation at your expense. I set the paper down, took a deep breath, and said absolutely not. I contacted the city. They sent over their records showing my house built by the original developer on the original foundation passed all inspections tied to the original recorded plat. Then I hired my own licensed surveyor to double-check. He spent half a day shooting lines, comparing control points, and scratching his head. Finally, he said, "You're fine. House is exactly where the city and the original plat say it is. But something's weird." He pointed at the brass cap. "That monument is beautiful," he said. "Original federal control. You move that thing, you're not just wrong, you're in serious trouble." "Wouldn't HOA move that?" I asked him. He laughed. "Nobody is that stupid." I showed him the violation letter. "Oh," he said slowly, "I see you've met nobody." Linda was not happy with my competing survey. She refused to look at it, called my guy some hired gun even though he was literally on the state board's ethics committee, and doubled down. "This community cannot tolerate flagrant violations of setbacks," she wrote in an all-caps email. "Everyone else managed to build correctly. The board will take action." The board was Linda and two people who looked scared of her. The next day, I checked my backyard cameras and saw them. 3 men in fluorescent vests with a tripod and a metal detector trudging along the bluff. One of them hopped my low rear fence like it wasn't there. No knock. No permission, nothing. He walked straight to the brass cap, stared at it, and radioed something. I stepped outside. "Can I help you?" I asked calmly. The leader, a guy with a goatee and a logo on his vest that said Pruitt Property Services, waved a clipboard. "HOA survey," he grunted. "You're in violation." "Are you a licensed surveyor?" I asked. "Don't need one," he said. "We're just verifying pins." He and his buddy started digging around the monument. I walked closer. "Careful," I said. "That's a federal marker. Says so right on the disc." He snorted. "It's a pin. We move these all the time." "No, you really don't," I said. "Unless you like felonies." Linda appeared at the fence line with her arms crossed. "Marcus," she said with fake patience, "stop interfering. They're correcting the plat. Once we move the rear line 3 feet, your house will still be technically within your lot. You should be thanking us." "Move the rear line," I repeated. "You think that's how property works?" She gave me a look like I was being dense. "The HOA has the authority to adjust internal boundaries to maintain uniform setbacks," she said like she was quoting scripture. "They don't," I said calmly. "Also, that marker is tied to federal land surveys and the conserved bluff. You touch it, you're in very big, very federal trouble." She smiled thinly. "We'll take our chances." So I smiled back, went inside, and did 3 things. I turned all my backyard cameras to max resolution. I called my lawyer. I emailed the county surveyor's office with photos of the brass cap and the phrase the HOA is talking about moving this. 2 hours later, after I had left for a site visit, they did it. On camera. Clear as day. The vest guys pried the brass cap out with a crowbar. Linda held a trash bag open. They dropped the monument inside and sealed it. Then they hammered in a cheap rebar stake 3 feet closer to my house. That night the county surveyor called me back. "You're joking," he said after I sent him the video. "I wish," I said. Silence. "Mr. Bell," he finally said with a flat voice, "destroying or relocating that monument is a federal offense. I have to report this." "Please do," I said. "Feel free to copy the HOA." The next morning my inbox lit up. Email from Linda said, "Per updated survey, your house is officially non-compliant. You have 30 days to submit a remediation plan or the HOA will pursue legal and physical remedies, including but not limited to demolition of non-conforming sections." Email from the county surveyor said, "We have contacted the National Geodetic Survey and the Department of the Interior. An investigation is being opened." Email from my lawyer said, "Congratulations. They just committed the stupidest crime I've seen this year." By Friday, the survey dispute was no longer a neighborhood drama. It was a case file with a federal case number. They showed up the following Tuesday. 2 unmarked SU versus county truck behind them. I watched from my front window as the door opened and a tall man in a gray jacket stepped out, flashed a badge, and walked up my drive. "Mr. Bell," he asked when I answered. "I'm Special Agent Kellerman with the Department of the Interior's Office of Inspector General. This is Miss Chavez from the National Geodetic Survey and Mr. Haley, County Surveyor. Mind if we take a look at your backyard?" I led them through the house. Linda spotted us from across the cul-de-sac and marched over like she had been summoned. "What's going on?" she demanded, barging through my open gate uninvited. "Ma'am, this is an active investigation," Kellerman said firmly. "You are?" She straightened. "I'm the HOA president. We're correcting a property violation." Chavez studied the bare patch of dirt where the brass cap had once sat. "Where's the monument?" she asked. Linda opened her mouth and loudly lied. "There never was one," she said confidently. "That was just a decorative disc someone put in. Our surveyor noticed it was wrong, so she trailed off. "We have video," I said calmly. "Would you like to see the decorative felony?" We went inside. I played the footage. Them digging. Them prying. The close-up crystal-clear shot of the disc in the guy's hand showing U.S. General Land Office 1964. "Do not disturb, $250 fine or imprisonment." Kellerman paused the video on that last frame. He looked at Linda. "You see that?" he asked gently. "The part that says do not disturb." She went pale. "He never told me that," she said, pointing at the vest guy. "He said it was fine." The vest guy held up his hands defensively. "You said you wanted the line moved," he protested. "You said it was just an HOA thing." Haley, the county surveyor, rubbed his temples. "That monument ties into our county control network, the subdivision plat, the federal conservation land, and AFEMA floodplain boundary," he said wearily. "You didn't just move a pin. You just invalidated half a mile of mapped data." Kellerman scribbled notes carefully. "Okay," he said. "Here's how this goes. We'll be opening a case for destruction of a federal survey monument. The parties involved appear to be this contractor and you, Miss Pruitt, as the party directing the action." Linda sputtered. "This is insane," she said loudly. "We were enforcing setbacks." "You're enforcing nothing now," Haley said flatly. "I'm filing an emergency notice with the county to suspend any enforcement based on your survey. Your new property line is legally meaningless." And Chavez added, "A licensed surveyor who stamped anything based on that bogus pin is going to have a very bad hearing with the state board." The vest guy whispered nervously, "I don't actually have a license." Everyone went quiet. Kellerman blinked slowly. "So the HOA used an unlicensed contractor to alter federal survey control monuments in order to pressure a homeowner to move his house 3 feet, he said. "Got it." He closed his notebook. "Mr. Bell," he said, "for your purposes, you're in the clear. Your property line is what the original plat and records say it is. You might want to avoid doing any major work back here until we reset the monument properly, but otherwise you're fine." Linda tried one last power move. "We will be countersuing," she snapped. "This man has been combative since he moved in. He refused to comply. He harassed our contractors. But Kellerman cut her off. "Ma'am," he said firmly, "you are under active investigation." I strongly suggest you stop talking, call your HOA's insurance carrier, and consult counsel." That was the exact moment the power shifted. When Linda realized the acronym she was now dealing with wasn't HOA, it was OIG. The fallout came fast and in layers. First, the state licensing board. Even though the Vest guy wasn't licensed, Linda had been using the name of a retired surveyor on her reports to make them look official. That man who lived 3 states away was not amused. He filed a complaint so furious you could feel the heat through the PDF. The board opened an ethics case against the HOA itself for fraudulent use of credentials and unlicensed practice. Then the HOA's insurance company got involved. Their adjuster sent a polite but icy letter saying based on the information received the association may have engaged in intentional illegal acts including trespass and destruction of property. These actions may not be covered under your policy. We strongly recommend immediate retention of counsel. Translation: You're on your own, sweetheart. The county commissioners held a brief, very public hearing to authorize funds to re-establish the monument. Haley testified showing stills from my video explaining how that one brass cap tied into flood maps, parcel lines, and federal land. The local paper did a story. The headline might as well have been HOA tries to move man's house, accidentally commits federal crime. Linda did not enjoy her newfound fame. Meanwhile, my lawyer filed a civil claim for trespass, a claim for property damage, and a demand for injunctive relief stopping all HOA enforcement against me pending the federal case. In the preliminary hearing, the judge was barely containing his amusement. "So let me understand," he said, peering over his glasses. The HOA believed it had the authority to relocate a house by adjusting a property line with a crowbar. Linda, now accompanied by her attorney, sat rigid in her seat. "We were simply correcting an encroachment," her lawyer said weakly. "By tampering with a monument that says do not disturb under penalty of law," the judge replied. Remarkable. He granted the injunction in about 30 seconds. Then came the final blow. The federal plea deal. Kellerman called me one afternoon. "Good news," he said. "We're resolving the case." The contractor pleaded guilty to a misdemeanor for unlawful disturbance of a survey monument, paying a $10,000 fine and agreeing to never perform survey-related work again. Linda signed an agreement admitting to directing the work, paying $25,000 in restitution for the cost of resetting the monument, and accepting 2 years of probation. The kicker was the mandatory removal of Linda from any position of authority over land use or property restrictions in Oakview Bluffs as a condition of her deal. The HOA board called an emergency meeting and attendance was standing room only. When the recall vote finally came, it wasn't close. Linda and her 2 board cronies were removed with a landslide. Linda stood at the back of the room shaking with rage and humiliation as person after person voted against her. Her face was red, her hands were trembling, and when the final tally was announced showing 87% voted for removal, she let out a choked sob and fled the room without another word.